Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, a special episode, a crossover with the Kamenetzky brothers at Locked On Lakers. We'll get their take on Anthony Edwards, my take on Luka Doncic, and what's most important for each team in this series. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to us by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Thursday, everybody. Today is a crossover episode of Locked On Wolves. We're going to get right to my conversation with the Kamenetzky brothers at Locked On Lakers. We talked to them before the season, before opening night, Wolves-Lakers. We're talking to them now before the playoffs. Those guys do a great job of covering L.A., and, this is a fascinating matchup. As we've talked about the last couple of days of the show, I wanted to get their perspective. They wanted to get mine. So we're just going to jump right in. Without further ado, let's get to my conversation with the Kamenetzky brothers at Locked On Lakers about this Wolves-Lakers first round series.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers and Locked On Wolves your first listens of every day. You know what? You could try to listen to them both at exactly the same time. And today, at least, you can. Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, neither of these shows ever going to be locked behind a paywall. You can catch them all both on YouTube as well. Locked On Lakers, Locked On Wolves. We are very excited as the series draws close. I mean, it's a Saturday. It's very exciting. Lakers fans have not hosted one of these things in a while. Open the playoffs at home. It's very exciting.
2012 Wolves, to be exact.
It's been a minute, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a while.
Ramon Sessions was your starting point guard for the Lakers.
Remember, this podcast is also going on Locked On Wolves, so Wolves fans know a little something about it being a while hosting a playoff game. So 2012 doesn't sound bad, actually.
The last time these two teams faced in the playoffs was Western Conference Finals 2004, the Kevin Garnett MVP season, the Kobe Shaq Peyton Malone season. You guys had Sam Cassell and Spree. It was a hell of a squad, and then things really went to bleed.
The Sam Cassell injury really did the Wolves in that year in the conference. I think he got hurt at the end of the second round, and that made it pretty impossible for the Wolves to win in the conference finals.
I was sort of half expecting you to be like, and LeBron played in that series.
Yeah. That was his
in the league.
Season, actually.
He was.
Yeah,
I know.
He was in the league.
I do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Ben, I am really excited about this series, in part just because, playoffs, but also I have seen all 10 of ESPN's analysts, who's going to win the series? Lakers. We did the squad show the other day. 7 of us on the call. You were conspicuously absent. Don't want to say anything. But
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. All 7 of us, Lakers, pick the Lakers in this series. What was your reaction? Because we're all draw watching, trying to figure out who's the best matchup, who's the worst. From Minnesota's perspective, when you guys landed at the 6, got the Lakers, was that a good or a bad thing?
I would say it's a bad thing. So 2 things. I was surprised that everybody everywhere is picking the Lakers. I still don't know that I've seen anyone. I haven't done a deep dive on every prediction everywhere, but what I've seen, nobody's picked the Wolves. Actually, last week I hosted the Locked On Wolves postcast. I was filling in, and I had our analyst Jack Borman on, who's actually going to be on Locked On Wolves tomorrow, who does all the postcasts. And we ranked at the time that going into the weekend, there were the four most likely opponents for the Wolves, and we ranked them. And we actually put the Thunder ahead of the Lakers. We both agreed that we would rather face OKC than LA. And of course, it's Luka is the reason. And Jack kept saying, "Look, Luka and LeBron are 2 of the smartest, most intelligent, and obviously good players that we've had in this generation. You don't want to play those guys both on the same team in a playoff series." And that is, to sum it up, that's the reason why. There's, of course, Luka PTSD from the conference finals last year. But since then, a lot has changed. Luka's obviously on a different team, although you could argue certainly the Lakers supporting cast is better for Luka than what last year's Mavericks cast was, and he went to the finals. But we also saw the Celtics really kind of run him down, or wear him down, I should say, in the finals last year. So, yeah, I mean, Luka, and then secondarily LeBron, and then you could throw Austin Reeves in there. Like, the other thing that I would say about this series is the Lakers, like off the top, I think it's very likely the Lakers have 3 of the best 4 players in the series. And that matters in a playoff series, and the best player in the series in Luka. But on the flip side, the Wolves probably have 7 of the best 11. And I'm sure we could quibble about this a little bit, 7 of the best 12, maybe. But it's a playoff series. So in the first round with more off days, so does the depth matter as much? All that to say, the matchup is a little bit scary for Minnesota. And it's primarily Luka, and it's the Lakers and how good the Lakers are when they go small. The Rudy Gobert factor is, of course, of a lot of intrigue going into the series.
Yeah, we definitely want to spend a good amount of time on that big versus small thing, because the size question really for every team the Lakers are going to play in theory across the playoffs, assuming they get through this round. Length, size, centers, it's going to be part of the list. You mentioned though the PTSD with Luka and last year's playoffs. If you happen to miss it, Luka absolutely torched the Wolves in that series that Dallas went on to win. How much does that matter? Like, year to year, series to series, do you think that actually makes a difference, given some of the difference in the personnel? Like you said, he switched teams and all that.
I think it matters. Because it's virtually the same Wolves team. Obviously no Karl-Anthony Towns, but in terms of their strategy defensively, the personnel that's going to be guarding him is the same. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about this, I'm sure, as we go, but like Jalen Clark could have a shot. He was a primary against Luka for most of the game in late February, when the only game the Wolves and Lakers played post Luka trade. He's like the 9th guy. He's playing 5 minutes a game right now. So I don't know how much he'll factor into the actual game plan from at least at the start of the series, but it's virtually the same personnel. And the other thing is, I think this is a tough thing to kind of quantify, but Wolves fans know that so much of this team's issues this year is, again, impossible to quantify, but it's mental, right? It's this weird, like, they get in their heads and they don't get up for the bad teams, or they fall apart in crunch time against good teams that they played well against until crunch time. And, there's some school of thought that, like, in a playoff series, they can lock in and focus on one team and it won't be an issue and the talent can shine through. But on the flip side, these guys all know what Luka did to them last year. And so is there going to be this mental block? It seems silly to say, but it's just this thing that, like, Wolves fans, I think, know what I mean by that, where it's like,
I think Laker fans who watched their team against Denver for 2 seasons in a row in the playoffs and appreciate what it could mean if they face Denver again this year, just having Luka and DFS and JJ Redick, all of whom did not experience that stuff with Jokic and company, and what is hopefully going to be like a psychological rewiring of this team. I totally get what you mean by the idea of, like, PTSD. This was just a season ago and Luka carved up the Wolves.
Yeah. And the Wolves, of course, want to play drop coverage. That's what they typically do. Can't really do that against Luka. And of course, the infamous Luka over Rudy shot in game 2, which people, like, it's easy to forget. The Wolves lost game 1. They were up 2 with less than 10 seconds left in game 2. And the possession before, the Mavs did the same thing. High screen and roll. Rudy got switched onto him. He actually stopped Luka. Luka tried to go to the basket. He stopped around 15, 16 feet. Rudy contested it. He missed the shot. The Wolves were still up 2. And then he cooked him on the step back from, 28 feet or whatever it was. And, like, hey, what do you do? Like, that's such a silly clip to me, because, like, Luka's Luka. Like, nobody's guarding that shot if he makes that shot. And that's kind of part of the mental thing for the Wolves. It's like, what do we do? Like, how do we play this? So, yeah, I mean, personnel is virtually the same. Hopefully the tactic changes a little bit. I think they tried to, early in the series last year with the Mavs, tried to not get too cute and just tried to play it straight up with Jaden McDaniels, who then got into foul trouble. And so I think the strategy this year is going to be maybe being a little more physical with him, take your chances with the whistle. The Lakers are going to shoot free throws. Like, they're going to shoot 20 plus free throws a game. What's the difference between 20 and 23 or 24, So I think they may be a little bit, hopefully they don't do exactly what they did early in the Mavs series last year. But I don't know. What do you like, just looking at what the Wolves and Lakers did this year, and again, I guess only one game with Luka. I mean, how how have you seen teams try to defend Luka with both Austin Reeves and LeBron James on the floor that you feel like has been at least somewhat effective, or at least what teams have tried to do against Luka?
It's an interesting question. And it comes down to, in a lot of ways, double or not to double, and where the pressure comes and how you do it. But who LeBron is passing, or who Luka is passing to in those situations, has a big impact on the answer. We'll get into all that next.
Locked on Lakers and Locked on Wolves, both brought to you by Skims. I am somebody that is super picky about underwear. I only like boxer briefs, period. And they got to have a certain feel. Want them, not too tight, but not too loose. It's like a Goldilocks situation. I want them to be just right. So when I heard we at Locked On could get our hands on some Skims underwear, my first thought was Skims makes men's underwear. Turns out, yeah, they do. And my second thought is, again, I'm picky. Am I going to like them? The answer is, oh, hell yeah. I definitely like them. I tried both the 3-inch and the 5-inch boxer briefs and just wanted to see what the difference was. The only difference is one's 3 inches long, one's 5 inches long. Otherwise, exactly the same, which is great. They're super comfortable. They're soft. They don't bunch up. They look really great. Your partner's going to dig them. Highly recommend. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com. And you got to let them know we sent you. This is very important, maybe even more important than your actual enjoyment of Skims. After you place the order, select podcast in the survey and select our show or Ben's show, Locked on Wolves, in the drop-down menu that follows, either Locked on Lakers or Locked on Wolves. Do not give any of these other shows credit for purchasing from us. Again, extremely important. Shop Skims Mens at skims.com.
Locked on Lakers and Locked on Wolves, both brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be there without any of the stress that comes with last-minute ticket hunting. I know I got my eye on some tickets for the weekend, Friday night. I'm thinking about going to the Angel City game in LA. I am watching on Game Time to see what those last minute deals look like, because they can save you up to 60%. So whether you're looking for soccer tickets, you're looking to get closer and closer to tip off to find out what you might be able to do to get into the arena on Saturday. Lots of reasons to use Game Time. I like seeing the last minute deals. I really like seeing the all-in pricing, so I know exactly how much a ticket is going to cost me before I get to the checkout page. So you take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So this question of how to defend Luka, I'm sure it is one that you guys are spending a fair amount of time on at Locked on Wolves. For my part, Andy, I think teams that consistently try to double or trap Luka pay for it more often than not. There's a downside to not doing it, but to me, to answer the question that Ben was asking in the last segment, I feel like when you try to throw extra bodies at Luka, it does not turn out well.
Yeah, I think it's in a lot of ways the difference between the idea of doubling Anthony Edwards, who we're going to talk about him, obviously. He's a great player. I mean, he's truly one of the great players in the league, and he can do some playmaking, but he's not a high-end elite playmaker. It's the difference between doubling someone like Ant versus, and especially with the cast of characters alongside him, versus trying to double somebody like Luka, who is great at passing out, but also he will often at that point be passing out to either LeBron or Austin Reeves. So in a lot of ways, defending Luka is really a question of defending all three of those guys, if not at the same time, certainly like in cohesion. I think for the most part, and this is, I think, maybe good news for the Wolves, at least on some level, because they've been a good defensive team and they've got a lot of wing defenders with length and stuff like that. I think the more you can try to play those guys straight up and honest and force Luka or LeBron or Austin into working for whatever they get, make or miss, but you just make them work. You make them work to get into the spots that they want, and you just make it difficult for them. Make it a taxing thing to get their points, even if they do, as opposed to trying to get the ball out of any one of those three hands, because in all likelihood, at least one other of those guys is going to be out there. And if you give LeBron or Austin the opportunity to get the ball with advantage, that can be really difficult, especially when the Lakers are playing their version of the death lineup, and with LeBron, Luka, Austin, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Rui Hachimura, because then you have five guys that at minimum you have to account for.
Yeah,
like none of them are guys that you want to ignore. So for what it's worth, if the Wolves are capable of doing a lot of it, that I think is the best way to try to handle a difficult problem.
Yeah, I think just two things happen when you double the Lakers, whether it's LeBron. LeBron is a little more doubleable just because, you know, he is I think a little bit more turnover prone, you know, not quite as Luka's a weird kind of explosive, but I think, you know, you understand that sort of short space ability to free himself up and all that kind of stuff with the handle and whatever. LeBron gets into a little bit more trouble with that kind of thing. But even then, either one of those guys are still so big and have such good vision that you're now, you know, it's 2-on-1 in one spot and 4-on-3 everywhere else.
Yep.
The remaining guys on Lakers, particularly with the, you know, the main lineups we're talking about, are such good passers that even if DFS is the next guy in line that gets the pass, he's going to find the open player. And now you're allowing LeBron or Luka or Reeves to operate with an unbalanced floor, and Minnesota's got to get back and scramble and fix that.
If you're going to double one of those guys, double Austin. Like Austin is the guy that you'll most likely get into trouble throwing multiple bodies at. Just because
even then, I think they're smart about getting out of that stuff. It might work briefly, but then it's not a sustainable strategy. I do think though, the best thing to do is just try to get all three of those guys to isolate, make you know, unbalanced floor, and say we're just going to let you guys play one-on-one as much as possible.
Yeah, Chris Finch doesn't like to double guys. The only time I'd really, and I'm sure they did it at times, it's really more selective. It's never like the Wolves will play teams, and their strategy from the get-go is send two at Ant, like the whole game, just do it. And the Wolves don't like to do that. They did. That's how they came back and beat OKC. Actually, I think the game right before they played the Lakers in February, they were down 20+ in the fourth quarter. The way they came back was they just sent everything at SGA and made, you know, A-Dub and the other guys. Chet didn't play in that game. Other guys beat them, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't knock down a three. The Wolves don't like to do that in general, though, and I think there's too many other guys. Like, to your guys' point, like there's three guys. Plus, I mean, you could argue that, you know, Rui and some of these other guys are more dangerous than some of the supporting cast members that OKC has once you get past SGA if Chet Holmgren's not on the floor. So, I think that's a strategy that certainly teams use against Ant, and he's improved, but he's not great against it. And the Wolves, I think they're going to come out with trying to guard him straight up, trying to guard Luke straight up. I think it's going to be probably Jay McDaniels to start. And he's had mixed success against Luka. In theory, the length bothers him, but he's just so slight of build. And he's foul prone. And, you know, Luka's going to get those calls in the playoffs. I think it's going to be Jaden. And then I think if he gets into foul trouble, it might be Anthony Edwards kind of next up. I know people have talked about Julius Randle maybe guarding him at times, and Naz Reid's had some limited success or success in limited run guarding Luka. He did actually a little bit in the playoffs last year and was just as effective as anyone. So I think it is going to be straight up just one body after another. Like, all right, you're in foul trouble or you're ineffective. Next man up. Let's see what we can do. And then maybe, you know, pick your spots to put two on LeBron or two on Austin Reeves to try to generate some turnovers and offense going the other way, which is something I talked about on yesterday's Locked On Wolves. Is, you know, that's an area Wolves don't run a lot. But when they do run off of steals, they're pretty effective, and the Lakers have a good transition defense. So I do think there's going to be an element of kind of picking your spots to double, to put two on the ball and try and generate some offense that way by getting a turnover and going back the other way.
Speaking of Ant and the different ways that, you know, Lakers would look to try to slow him down, I was looking at his splits against the Lakers this season, and whether you're talking about lower points per game, lower percentages from the field, fewer trips to the line, pretty bad assist to turnover ratio, the Lakers did a pretty good job this season limiting his effectiveness, but also once I started looking at some of the specific matchup data, 2 of the 3 guys most involved were Anthony Davis or Max Christie, who are obviously no longer on this team. When you look at the current incarnation of the Lakers, how well equipped do you think they are for, at minimum, making Ant work, if not actually leading him to having a bad series?
I think, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, my perspective of this is I think the Lakers are going to, I'm not saying he's going to start, but I think Jared Vanderbilt is going to be pretty key. I think I believe he guarded him at times last year. I know he did in the one game Vanderbilt played against the Wolves and ended up getting ejected. And I think that was if I'm remembering right, Vando was kind of involved in goading Ant into those technicals. I think
Vando
he's got the
never.
Yeah, it doesn't. Timberwolves fans love Vando. I mean, he had the V8 nickname in Minnesota. Like, people love him. I think he's the best bet as far as a straight-up defender. My hunch is, assuming he doesn't start, and I said the other day, like, again, you guys would know better than me.
He won't.
If I'm the Lakers, I'd consider starting Jared Vanderbilt just to guard Ant. But my hunch is they're just going to put 2 on the ball or be very willing to do that. Or the way they guarded him last time around, at least, was rewatching that game from February, was tried to guard him straight up. I think Rudy was on him at first, and then like they kind of did the thing where you try and basically play the gaps, and you kind of guard him with 1.5 guys, and you're not really doubling it, but you're shading that way. I think that's probably what they do. But then when Vanda's on the floor, I think they try and go straight up against Anthony Edwards. And we talked about this earlier. I mean, Ant isn't consistent when he gets blitzed. He was blitzed more than any team or more than any individual player in the league this year in pick and roll, and his points per possession were okay, but they were lower than like the next 3 guys on that list are like Steph, Luka, Jason Tatum, and then like I think Dame's after that, and they all had higher points per possession than Anthony Edwards when getting blitzed. So I do think the evidence is there that you can do that and you can frustrate him, and he's either going to go into hero ball mode and turn the ball over, take bad shots, or he might turn it over trying to be a hero and make a great pass. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm completely open to blitzing him, making somebody else beat them, the old cliche. And, secondarily, if Vanderbilt's in the game and you can handle that offensively, then he's not a bad one-on-one, defender for Ant.
Is it a matter of shutting him down, or is it a matter of shutting everyone else down? And so I want to get into a little bit of that because it's sort of reflective of what you're talking about. And then definitely before we're done, this question of size and length from one team to the other. So we'll get to all that stuff next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire Stick TV 4K devices. There's no console required. Just grab your pair controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you can stream your favorite shows. Gaming made simple, all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, or more, or as I like to call those channels, everything I watch. A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable, easier to travel with, allowing you to take your or your kids' very important games wherever you plug in, so the kids will never miss a game with their friends, won't complain. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controllers required. It's available on select devices, including Fire Stick TV 4K second gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and Fire TV Cube third gen.
I'm sort of the mind that you kind of have 2 choices, Ben. It's like you can try to slow down Ant, and the Lakers have done a pretty good job of it. He's well below his percentages all year long against the Lakers relative to the rest of the league. Or if people are expecting Ant to have to go kind of nuclear for the Wolves to win the series, give him that opportunity, but make sure if he's scoring 36 that you're not also getting 29 from Julius Randle or something like that. I'm kind of the opinion that the latter part, like that Ant can't outscore the Lakers by himself as long as the rest of the supporting cast doesn't go off.
How does that work, though, from a practical standpoint with Minnesota's offense? Because he does have the ball in his hands a lot, and he can distribute, but it's not like you say, turn Anthony Edwards into a distributor or a scorer. You know what I'm saying? Like with certain guards and players like that. That's not him.
No, and actually, like, his assist rate went down a little bit this year. The turnover rate went up ever so slightly. And for Ant, and I think this is maybe I'm estimating that this is maybe what kid has, like, at times caused him to go into hero mode and to struggle with when teams do put two on the ball. It's not usually the pass he makes that gets them a bucket. It's the pass to the pass. It's the hockey assist, right? So, like, a lot of times Rudy will come up and set a screen and teams will just blitz and then Rudy's on the short roll and he's got to catch at the free throw line and swing to the corner. And that's when the Wolves are at their best, is when teams are doubling. That's usually the escape for Minnesota, is Rudy has short roll, swinging to the corner. And it oftentimes works out really well. And so I actually think Julius Randle is very likely to be the Wolves' second leading scorer in the series. But I think the key isn't necessarily like Julius Randle getting 20 plus. I don't even think it's like Rudy scoring more than people expect, or like Donte DiVincenzo being the best bench player in the series or whatever. I think it's just, in general, the Wolves role players knocking down open shots. And I'm not saying like if they shoot really well, the Wolves win the series, but that's going to give them a fighting chance. If Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid and Donte DiVincenzo and Jake Daniels get those open corner 3-point shots, or maybe it swings to the corner or it gets to the corner, they swing it to the wing, get a slot 3 opportunity. If they knock those down at a reasonable rate, then the Lakers are going to have to back off of, doubling Ants and play it a little more straight up. The reason the Wolves have won 17-21, a lot of that is Rudy Gobert just playing really well. Some of it is scoring. Like, he's actually getting the basketball. The other day he made the way he went to the basket, I think he Euro stepped and like gathered, and like my 10-year-old son was watching, and he, like, at just a glance, like, that looked like Ant, but it was Rudy. And I was like, yeah, it was weird. He doesn't normally do that stuff. Like, he's just been a little bit more involved offensively, which isn't always a good thing. But that, like, he's played really smart last several weeks. And he said something after the game the other day to the effect of, like, I know I got to be involved in the offense. I have to be, impactful offensively, whatever. So I think as long as the Lakers are doing that, Rudy's going to be involved in the short roll, and then he's got to make the right decision. The guy who catches the ball has to make the right decision, and then he's going to make the open shot. I actually think it's more about that than it is about Ant, as long as Ant's not trying to do the hero ball thing all the time. And then the other thing I would say is, if the Lakers try and kind of play the gaps and not truly double him, the difference between Ant this year and last year is he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league now, and he wasn't last year. So less teams are doing that, because he'll just pull up if he's only got one guy on him and there's another guy waiting in the gap. He's like, all right, I'm a 40% 3-point shooter. I'll just pull this from 26 feet. And that's probably not sustainable for the game for Minnesota. That's a way that they can kind of circumvent that. So I do think blitzing him in moderation and then having a healthy dose of a physical defender. I know Hachimura could get beat off the dribble, but it feels like he's got the size to bother Ant, and then some Vanderbilt. I think that a mix of that is probably the right strategy.
A guy whose name has barely come up in the almost 30 minutes we've talked is Julius Randle. Where do you think he figures into all of this, and how concerned at all are you about his playoff track record, which, to be honest, not great?
Yeah, I don't know. The playoff track record is funny. Like, I can't say I can remember enough of Julius Randle playing in the playoffs with, the Knicks and others to, like, really, feel strong. And obviously he was hurt last year, right? Like, I mean, he didn't really, he didn't play in the playoffs last year. I don't know. He's obviously an important part of the series. And a lot of times he's going to be a guy who, if the Lakers are heavily shading towards Anthony Edwards, Randall's got to be the guy who can dominate a mismatch and dominate that second side. I think that's the key, is for him to do that, to play bully ball against a mismatch. If he's got Austin Reeves on him or whoever, do that. Go to work, play one-on-one, shoot your little 14-foot fadeaway. That's actually fairly effective. But don't do that if you've got somebody with similar size on you. Don't do that if they're loading up. Expect you to do that because Ant's off the floor. Like, that's when Julius gets in trouble. And then sometimes he tries, he's I don't know, I want to say he's not a more willing passer than Karl Towns, but I think he's a better passer overall, but he also will try things that he shouldn't try to try and facilitate for others. And Chris Finch loves the fact that he can play as a point forward. Sometimes he gets a bit out over his skis, especially if Ant's not on the floor. So I think as long as that second side attack is against the mismatch and it's within moderation, he could have a really nice series. It's just the Lakers have they don't have any little guys in the rotation, right? It's a bunch of guys that are roughly the same size, and it's Jackson Hayes is what it feels like. And so there could be opportunities for Julius Randle to attack some of those mismatches, but for the most part, I think he's going to have to pick his spots. And similar to Rudy, he said some smart things in the media about understanding that and knowing that he doesn't have to get 30 a game. Will that work in practice? I'm not really sure. And I guess I would flip that, like, if from the Wolves side, asking you guys, obviously Luka is going to get all the attention. LeBron is LeBron, and he kind of facilitates things. What's the kind of X factor is such an overplayed cliche, but like if the Lakers are going to win this series, and I know they're the favorites, but other than Luka being Luka, what's something that you guys feel like needs to happen or would happen in this series? If the Lakers win in 5 or 6 games, who is the hero, or what did they do that really stood out that maybe unexpectedly, it doesn't have to be unexpectedly, but help the Lakers, win the series over the Wolves?
It's funny, like, because I think a lot of this question, obviously, it's playoff season. The X factor question comes up a lot, but like, Rui Hachimura is obviously a big one for the Lakers if he's scoring and all that kind of. If they get anything off the bench, Gabe Vincent comes in and hits 2 or 3 threes, and he's come like. By the way, it's the only member of the rotation that you're talking about that it really is under 6'5". Yeah. I mean, it's him. To me, though, I will say this: if the Lakers win in 5. And assuming Luka plays like playoff Luka, LeBron plays like playoff LeBron, the reason the Lakers win 5 is because Austin Reeves continues to play like he has been. I mean, I realize it's sort of weird to pick a guy who is part of the quote-unquote big 3 and make him an X factor, but AR has been shooting like Steph for the last month. And if he is that guy in this series, that's how the Lakers win in 5. That's how it becomes a series that I think could be a long one. I think the Lakers will win, but I think a series that could be long becomes a 5-game series if Reeves plays at that sort of legit, fringe all-star, third-team All-NBA level that he's been at for the last 6 weeks.
I'll add a couple more things. Brian mentioned Rui. I think depending on how the Wolves look to guard LeBron and Luka and Austin, like a lot of teams, once you start in particular accounting for Luka and LeBron, you don't have a guy that's big enough and quick enough to deal with Rui. And Rui is a guy that has become very good at both punishing mismatches, but also noticing when defenders are paying too much attention to the ball. He's become an extremely good baseline cutter. If Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent are hitting outside shots regularly, the Lakers this season have been borderline unbeatable. Like when those guys are hitting 2 or 3 threes per game, the Lakers become extremely tough. As far as something specific to the Wolves, this is something also I noticed going through some of their numbers. Like as a team, particularly a team as big as them, they're not great on the glass. Like they're not terrible, but they're not great either. Yep. But one of the things I noticed is they're one of the better teams in the league at second chance points, and in particular putbacks. Like they're one of the best teams in the league, which makes me think, correct me if I'm reading this wrong, they're very opportunistic with the offensive rebounds that they get, and they're pretty good at making something out of them. And that's an area where the Lakers have often been vulnerable. I think if they do a good job keeping Minnesota off their own offensive glass, I think that could be a key.
And he talked about the rebounding. And to me, when you think about the Wolves leveraging their size, it's not like you're going to run the offense through Rudy Gobert. That's not how it operates.
I mean, if you want to go for that, if you want to zig while everyone else would zag, by all means, Chris Finch, blow our minds.
But what is the best way, do you think, for the Wolves to try to use some of that extra size, in the post that they have over the Lakers? Again, the Lakers are not a small team, but they don't have centers other than Hayes. What's the best way you think for them to try to do it, and how effective do you think they'll be?
Yeah, I do think it's offensive rebounding, and that's actually a intentional kind of schematic shift for the Wolves. Like, go back before January 1st, and I believe they were bottom third in the league offensive rebound rate. And there was a game in January, the Wolves beat the Rockets, and they had billion offensive rebounds. And post game, Chris Finch was asked about it, and he was like, "Yeah, he's like, that's the way the league's going now." Like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing now a little bit, but he basically said, like, it used to be everybody needs to get back. Like, the Wolves were so bad in transition defense the last couple of years, it was everyone's getting back. And now it's, if guys are leaking out to get fast break opportunities, we've got 5 guys looking at the rim. Let's crash 5 and see if we can get an extra possession out of it. And they shifted that in January, and that's been a big part of their offense because I mean, you'll remember last year they were like 16th or 17th in the NBA in total offense. So there's no reason why a team with Ant Cat should have been that bad. There's still some of that clunkiness with, you know, when Ant is doubled. And so one of the ways they've been able to kind of facilitate the offense is, or I should say, like, I don't know, I guess get it moving is offensive rebounding. And then it's being opportunistic in transition a little bit, which is less to do with the size. I think Reid's going to be a big factor. Obviously, Rudy being solid and not being quote unquote played off the floor, which I hate the phrase, but that's what everybody says. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think Chris Finch, there's going to be a game maybe too where Chris Finch chooses to close with Reid instead of Rudy Gobert. And he doesn't do it often, but he will do it. I mean, there are games he's closed with instead of Rudy if you need offense, if you need three-point shooting. And Reid's been a much better rebounder of late than he has been historically for his career. And he's a similar size to a lot of these Lakers guys we just talked about. And I think if he's on the glass and playing hard, he's got some peaks and valleys when it comes to rebounding. If he's doing that, the Wolves will get more offensive rebounds, and I think the offense will be better, and we'll see a higher scoring series. And believe it or not, I actually think a higher scoring series might not necessarily be a bad thing for the Wolves because it means there's more possessions, and it means there's a little bit of higher variance and some transition opportunities, and I think it gives the Wolves a fighting chance. So I think offensive rebounding is probably the biggest thing. And Reid, if I'm going to name an X factor when it comes to that, I think him minutes at 5 is going to be really important in this series.
Last thing before we go, just curious where everybody is right now as we head into the weekend, how they're feeling. I've got this still Lakers in 6, Andy.
Lakers in 6.
Ben?
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, I started to. Yeah, I think I'm still Lakers in 6. Those haven't been an outstanding home team this year. I could see the Lakers closing it out on the road. So I think the Wolves will steal at least 1 in LA, but I think it's probably Lakers in 6 would be my pick.
All right, so everybody, like 6 can turn to 7 pretty quick, and I think we're all expecting a competitive series. This is a lot of fun, and it's also going to be a long series just based on the schedule, so perhaps we'll have a chance to talk again. Yeah. A lot of days off in this one, which I think definitely favors the Lakers. Locked on Lakers, Locked on Wolves, both available on YouTube. Make sure you check it out there. Check out the newsletters. Check out everything. We will see everyone tomorrow.
And there you have it. A fantastic conversation with Brian and Andy Kamenetzky at Locked On Lakers, and so many angles to this matchup that we've covered in a lot of ways. But one more way, we're going to cover it tomorrow. Jack Borman from the Locked On Wolves postcast is going to be on the show, and I asked him a bunch of questions about his take on this series. Ran a couple things that the Kamenetzky brothers said by Jack as well. So plenty more perspective coming. We have all week to speculate about this series. Who's going to guard who? How will each team approach every facet of this matchup? And if the Wolves win, what happens in the series? The Wolves pull it out. What happens if the Lakers pull it out besides Luka being Luka Doncic? So a lot to get to on Friday's show. Be sure to tune into that. It'll be posted bright and early on Friday. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder about the newsletter as the Wolves make their playoff run. Locked On Wolves has you covered every step of the way. Subscribe to the Locked On Wolves podcast newsletter for expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. And as a subscriber, if you sign up for the rest at some point between now and the end of April, you'll be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a gift card from our friends at Game Time that's $300, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. Simply subscribe to Locked On Wolves, the newsletter, between right now and April 30th, so just a couple of weeks from now, to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of the Wolves championship run. Join the Locked On Wolves newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking the link in the description of this show. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.